Welcome to my channel, viewers, and I first off want to thank all your returning subscribers, which isn't a lot, but my channel is small and I don't expect much out of it. And that I do keep seeing all my old Tacoma content popping up in my analytics telling me how many people viewed and this and that. And it's usually P0705, the transmission range circuit indicator code, because obviously the trucks are getting older and people are looking more and more to fix that ongoing problem with the older generation, second generation Tacomas. So without further ado, I am going to get right into it. As I titled this, we're going to talk about the 2025 car market, and I'm going to give you some of my personal, I want to say I am going to predict, or I'm going to give you my personal opinion on what I think is going to happen in 2025. And I'm also going to go over some things, some recalls that are out there, why this is going to affect the whole entire automotive industry, and why it's going to be a wicked ultra need for automotive technicians, which is already a very scarce environment as far as trying to find automotive technicians for these jobs. So we will get into it. If you are new here, definitely consider clicking that subscribe button. While I am a small channel, I appreciate everybody and all their help. And again, if you're a returning subscriber here, thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. So let's get right into it. So as you all know, 2022, 23, and obviously 2024, tons of financial distresses out there reoccurring with healthcare, automotive, dining, retail, everything. It's all a big revolving circle. So 2025, one thing we've got that's going to change, obviously, and I'm not going to get 100% into politics, but we are going to have the Republicans, and obviously we're going to have Donald Trump, who is going to be running the country. So I do see some changes happening along them lines too. But obviously, everything, again, it's just a big revolving circle. So there has to be production, and the production has to be there. And obviously production is money, and money is production. And that's kind of how that goes as far as jobs. So, if there's not stuff getting made, there's not stuff getting sold, there's no jobs for the people. In other words, like if you get 10 new vehicles sold, that's going to be in demand for, just right off the bat, it's going to be the salesman to sell them vehicles. And obviously, every vehicle that's out there tends to have a problem, or they're going to need maintenance such as oil changes and tire rotations. So it's going to be in demand for technicians. So obviously, the more vehicles that are sold, or the more product in any business, the more demand there's going to be for workers. So right now, if you take a look, numerous car dealers in your area, they're just filling up with inventory after inventory. There's places that are putting vehicles on land. They're asking other people to use their land to fill the inventory. And then obviously for these big companies that can't sell the inventory, they're going to be forced to sell them to places like CarMax and Carvana, and these places that are going to take them, and they're going to basically sell them to people at a higher interest rate because they don't have good credit. And then they're going to have to pay a lot more for the car. But everywhere is just, tons and tons of inventory. What's going to happen, and some of this is based on some of the things I read, and then I'm going to have my own personal opinions on what I think is going to happen from, being 20 years in the automotive industry, and kind of seeing, if anybody remembers back in 2009 when they did cash for clunkers, which was basically a government incentive for you to trade in something that got below a certain threshold of miles per gallon. Like there was a lot of Lincoln Town cars, Ford Crown Victorias, there was Chevy Blazers, Nissan Pathfinders. There was a lot of vehicles that got real poor fuel economy, and they were coming out with a lot of like the Honda CRVs and the Toyota RAV4s and all these little SUVs that could get phenomenal gas mileage. So they were actually pushing to get rid of these old vehicles that had high emissions and get them off the roads. The government said, here's a certain amount of money if you have a vehicle that qualifies, and then it was forcing people to actually trade these vehicles in. So comment, let me know if you think they are going to do something like that. I'm thinking there may be something, or there may not be. But no matter what, as the 2024s that are sitting on the lot, there's also a lot of things that you have to take in mind with the 24s and the 25s coming out. First off, obviously the room for them, and second off, as these vehicles sit, with being a former auto tech, lots of things happen to these vehicles. For one, mice get into these vehicles, and with all the highly sophisticated electronics and all the wiring and stuff, it can actually even total some vehicles. So if these sit long enough, and mice, in certain dealerships that are, near like a field area or somewhere there's different rodents and stuff, it can actually damage these vehicles. And then, of course, obviously rust plays a role in things. While everything's treated and protected, the brakes are sitting, excuse me, the brakes are sitting there, and the brakes are going to rust. And, obviously you don't want your brand new vehicle driving down the road and the rotor's starting to pulsate. You want a nice smooth experience with brakes and obviously your brand new car. So, there's so many roles that play a factor with these cars sitting. And of course, again, the push and the production of more and more and more, they're going to have to do something. Prices are either going to have to lower, or again, the government would have to do some kind of an incentive. So predictions, what they're actually predicting in sales in 2025, new light vehicle sales are expected to be around 16.3 million in 2025, which would be the highest since 2019. The increase would be expected to be driven by lower financial loan rates and incentives from the automotive, obviously the makers, and it would normalize the vehicle inventory. So they're hoping that it's going to obviously go back into normal inventories, and they're not going to be full. Their lots aren't going to be completely full. There's no room or anything, and these vehicles are going to sell. And then they're also expecting for electric vehicles to go up by 13.5% in the U.S. Light vehicles in 2025 up to 10.3% in 2024. Cox Automotive actually predicts that 1 in 4 vehicles sold in 2025 will be an electric vehicle, which is a little funny because just like me, a lot of people are already against electric vehicles. Tesla's kind of got their system's pretty good with thermal management and their heat, but as we all know, in the cold climates, nobody wants an electric vehicle. You don't want to be stuck in a blizzard and have a battery deplete and have a chance in obviously dying on a highway in an electric vehicle because there's no range where you can get a gas vehicle. It's got 400, or some of these hybrids, 800 or maybe about 600 miles of range, per tank of gas. So, again, that's kind of a funny thing, but that's what the government's pushing is electric vehicles. Luxury vehicles, the luxury car market is expected to grow at a compound annual rate of around 10.28% from 25 to 2030. And the U.S. luxury car revenue is projected to reach $7,727 million in 2025. And that's kind of funny when you think about it, because the more the cars get newer, even some of the basic cars now have even got like heated seats and heated steering wheels in a cloth vehicle. And the days of a work truck and roll up windows are gone. It costs factories a lot less to put an electric window in even a work truck today. So they don't even make the system for a roll up window. Everything's electric. It just makes sense, and the cost of electric motors and everything, it's just so much cheaper to put it into vehicles nowadays. So your standards and your quality on automotive, which can obviously struggle a little bit, it's different because everything nowadays is getting a little more stuff in it, like auto high beams and LED lights and all that kind of stuff. They're talking about small car revenue is projected to reach 7,206 million in 25. So obviously they're predicting right there some of your more economy cars are going to go up. And I mean, come on, if we're looking at Corolla and Civic and Hyundai, what's the smaller one there? Or like a Kia Rio or a Hyundai Accent. Obviously, all these people that can afford these cars, there's going to be a lot more people out there that are going to be able to afford these cars before they're going to be able to step into an all-wheel drive SUV of some extent. So the new car prices are expected to continue to come down in 2025 as dealers discount heavily and manufacturers increase their incentives, which is bound to happen because something has to happen. These vehicles can't sit there forever. They're not going to make any money. They're just going to rely on people fixing their old cars over and over and over again. And another thing that you have to look into is the people that are out there right now, me, for instance, driving a car that I owe a decent amount of money on with 150,000 miles on it. You have to just keep this thing going and going and going. And if I can, I'm probably going to have this car until it has about 250,000 miles on it. And I have to just keep this thing going. And then I'm hoping that I can keep it good. And then someday I can pass it down, if I live long enough, pass it down to somebody, maybe a younger kid or something, keep it in good enough condition so it's safe and they can buy it for a cheaper price. So before I get into the recalls, and it's actually crazy because every manufacturer has like a huge recall right now, and it's going to actually play a big role in everything in the car market. So just in the regular demand, once these manufacturers are forced to lower these vehicles and they're going to sell, it's going to put a lot of people that maybe have been driving that car for a little extra, a little longer, hasn't bought a new car in a long time. You know, people are going to start seeing that they're paying this much for a car, or they may even like be in a different position in life where they don't put a lot of mileage on a vehicle, and it might make sense just to go out and lease a car now. So this is going to be a high demand for automotive tax. So what's going to happen is, once, just like back in 2009, if the government does actually put an incentive out there, they're just going to start pushing. And not only is it going to put the new cars into the automotive industry, it's gonna also take the cars that the people have been driving that were halfway decent, and it's gonna put these on the used car lots, and then it's gonna send all them junkers to the junkyard, or it's gonna send some of the the cars that are maybe a little more on the rough side, but they'd be great for a starter car, somebody's kid or somebody that's just getting their license. It might be a perfect car for them. So it's gonna make the whole entire automotive industry in high demand for automotive tax, because everything's going to kind of evolve. And again, I'm going to get into the recalls, and that's going to be a big push, but it's just going to open for more opportunity, which in some cases there's a lot of people in life that don't want it, because there's a lot of dealers right now. Things are pretty quiet. There's just, this car coming in, that car coming in, an older one coming in. But once this all hits, it's just going to push, and they're going to be scrambling and running crazy, because they're just, a lot of new people, or a lot of people are going to be in newer cars that weren't before. And all these manufacturers like Toyota, they've got the Toyota Tacoma out there, and they've already had a problem with a transmission in that truck. So once these new cars that are sitting there just because they're all pretty on the lot, doesn't mean when people start driving them they're going to be perfect. Problems exist, and again, of course, the maintenance and stuff is going to need to be done on them. So it's going to also be in demand for automotive tax. So if anybody knows, there's actually a few different recalls out there, and I'm actually going to pull them up right now and talk a little bit about them. And it's kind of funny, for all the years they've been doing things, how they actually mess these things up. And especially Toyota, of all the makers, because they're real picky about their manufacturing. First recall I'm actually going to talk about, and I kind of learned this from my brother. He called me up and he said, hey, my 2022 Honda Civic's actually got a recall, and he brought it into the dealership. So I did a little research to see what they were actually going to do. So to make it very short and simple, basically they have electric power steering, and there's 2 gears inside there. And when you turn the gears, there's actually grease inside there that cushions and also makes it so that it's lubricated and it's more of an ease when you steer it. So there's a recall on these specific Honda cars with the power steering that is electric. And they're actually talking about a little bit of a binding when you're steering. So they just basically go in, take the car, and they inject a little grease into the gears. So it's kind of funny to see this, because it's obviously a design flaw. So they're going to put this grease in here, and then how many more miles is it going to last? Well, time will tell. We'll never know about that, but that's something that they don't learn about until it actually happens. So Honda will, at no charge, bring the vehicle in, inject the grease into the steering rack, so it's into the actual place where the gears actually mesh, and it will cushion it and stop it from binding. And then there's, as anybody knows, there's a 2022 Tundra. They had a manufacturing problem with the engine block. So somehow in the machining process of making the engine block and, haunting everything and actually machining the engines, there's somehow debris that wasn't washed out of these engines. So they're putting these engines all together, and the metal debris is either stuck in some kind of a passage or an oil gallery. And what happens is, when you start this vehicle and you start driving it down the road, all this debris is going through the engine, so it's starting to scrape on all the moving parts, the bearings and such, and it causes a catastrophic engine failure. And this vehicle will just stop while you're driving on a highway at high speeds, and it could even cause it to basically lock up, and it could cause an injury. So they have to replace it. And it's a certain amount of vehicles, and it's a 3.5 liter twin turbo, and I don't know if it affected the hybrids or not, but it's a very, very sophisticated, complicated vehicle, and there's a whole heck of a lot. And not only does the automotive tech have to know what the heck he's doing, and he has to be very thorough, and he has to have a very good memory, but he's got to be strong, and he's got to be able to work day in, day out, and working around a lot of chemicals. And it's just a very, very it's a complicated recall. It's not just like the Honda one where you can put a little grease into the steering rack and ship it out the door. The truck's got to be there for a whole entire week. And then obviously there's also the worry of, is my vehicle ever going to be normal again after, you get somebody and anybody, we all have bad days at work. Is this person going to know what he's doing? Is he going to tighten every single bolt? Is every single hose and vacuum line or anything on there, is it going to go in the exact place the factory put it? So that's the question in the customer's mind. Some of these people don't even want their vehicle back after they find us. They're like, is there any way? Or they'll trade it right in after, because they'll put it all back together and a little squeak or a rattle or something wasn't done right, and it's a bummer. So that being said, that's one of the other big recalls. And then Ford actually have a problem with, well, there's a lot of vehicles they got a problem with, but there's actually one specific one that's to their heavy duty trucks that got a diesel engine in it, and it's basically when you're putting biodiesel inside of these things, somehow it's actually contaminating, and it's the deposits from the pump and the drivetrain roller components could lead to a failure of the high pressure fuel pump. So Ford is recalling that, and again, obviously, it's going to cause an engine that's going to stall while you're driving down the road, and none of us obviously want that to happen, especially when you're on the highway and there's traffic behind you, especially if it's an abrupt stop. It could cause injuries or accidents. General Motors. So General Motors obviously couldn't be there without a recall. I worked on General Motors products for 20 years, and some of the recalls I did was actually unbelievable, and some of them were actually kind of quite interesting. And one of them in particular was just replacing a shift cable on certain Malibus and Pontiac G6s and stuff like that. It was actually a decent recall, and I was never flat rate at the time, but I was actually getting this done in like a half an hour, and it paid like an hour and 2/10. So it was actually, if I was flat rate at the time, I was banging these out at the dealership I was at paid hourly. I would have really made some good money doing that. But it's just funny, how little or how big the recalls could actually be. So General Motors actually has several large recalls for its vehicles with a transmission issue. So in November 2024, GM recalled 461,839 full-size pickups with the diesel engines. It could have a transmission issue, which would actually cause the rear wheels to lock up. So obviously, again, that's going to be a big problem because they can cause an accident and obviously even possibly death. It affects the following vehicles. So 2020 to 22 Silverado, GMC Sierra, Escalade, Tahoe, Suburban, and they said it can actually be fixed with a software update. So they're going to fix this. If I look back at it, I'd have to get into detail, not to get into detail in it, but it was actually a small part that wears out inside the transmission that would cause this. So basically, they're going to readjust their software to basically throw the check engine light on long before the part wears out, and anything could happen like this, which is kind of funny because it's happening in vehicles that have like 20-something thousand, 30-something thousand miles on it. But yay, engineers, they always know what they're doing. They haven't made vehicles long enough to not be able to, exclude a simple little transmission issue. Obviously, I could go on all day about some of the recalls. I'm sure Honda and Kia, and there's other ones out there besides what I had actually mentioned, them were just some kind of like the big cost-effective ones. And there was some kind of a manufacturing problem with the 2024 Tacoma. I guess they caught that pretty quick, but again, it was another problem where there was debris getting inside the transmission. There's not an engineering design with the 8-speed transmission behind the new turbo 4-cylinder Tacoma. It's actually just it's a problem during the manufacture. Debris is getting in there and it's damaging the components itself. So I've got one more thing. I actually, for the heck of it, pulled it off of Google just to see what they say, because we all go to Google for everything today, and it's just funny. So basically, 2025, it says, is going to be a higher demand for automotive techs. Increasing complexity of vehicles, the need for skilled mechanics is growing as vehicles become more complex. And that's obviously been an ongoing thing. The rise of electric vehicles of EVs are more common. Automotive mechanics need to learn how to service and repair them. Obviously, you're going to need technicians for EVs. That's what they're trying to do, which is kind of a scary thought, because these cars can kill you, and there's more voltage in them than most of your 220 volt dryer outlets. So if you don't know what the heck you're doing, or you touch the wrong thing, you're not wearing the right equipment, it can kill you really quick. And then, it's not going to be just a good shock and you go to the hospital. You're just going to light up and you're going to be a skeleton, and that's it. Traditional maintenance skills. Millions of gas-powered vehicles will still be on the road in 2025, and traditional maintenance skills will remain important. Of course, obviously, you're going to have oil changes and filters, and obviously a lot of vehicles still have belts and fluids and all that stuff. It just keeps everybody rolling. Other factors It may affect the demand for automotive technicians in 2025 are labor rates. Labor rates are expected to grow from 4 to 6% industry-wide, with mobile mechanics likely to see the highest increases. So mobile mechanics, obviously there's a few around here in the Northeast that do it, but nobody's going to go out there, even though I did an alternator on my on my RAV4 the other night in 20-degree weather because the alternator died on me. Mobile mechanics is becoming a big thing. People are loving the convenience of somebody coming right to their home. But me, as a technician point of view, I've worked on people's vehicles on the ground, and it really is a luxury to be able to lift a vehicle and stand up and work underneath them. Customers are increasingly searching for mobile mechanics near me, so localized web pages are becoming more important. Obviously people are searching for it. And just like somebody coming in to service your boiler, or an electrician or something like that, these people get to meet their mechanic one-on-one and have a conversation with them. We're at a dealership, they just see the talking service manager or service advisor there. So sometimes you don't even know what the vehicle or the person that is working on your car looks like. If some of these people knew some of the people that were working on their cars, they probably wouldn't even want them in their cars. And I'm not saying there's all bad. There's a lot of good people out there too. But there's a lot of people out there that are just doing anything they can just to make a paycheck. And they don't care how it gets done, as long as it gets done quick and they make more money. So last but not least, to help improve automotive workforce growth, the Tech Force encourages increasing awareness and building interest in technician careers, dispelling outdated notions of the automotive industry and increasing training enrollment. So me, as a former automotive tech, there's a few different reasons why I still have my heart into cars and I still wish I did it. And there's a lot of other reasons why I wish I didn't. For some of my health problems and stuff, I've been ongoing trying to find out something that's been going wrong with me, or something I've been complaining about for years. And I just recently had a doctor said maybe it's fibromyalgia, because I have this, like, just holding something up for a long time or doing something, I get this pain all over, like no matter what I'm doing, when I move my legs, my arms. But anyway, besides me complaining, I want to say thanks for watching, and definitely hit that like button. Share this video if you feel like it. Yes, it's just me sitting in a little tiny room. If you listen this far, holy monkrow. And so stay tuned for more videos, and I try to do them as they come. These ones, all I can do is talk during these winter cold days. But I do definitely plan on getting out for those that really care about the outdoor automotive or outdoor photography and my car maintenance tips and tricks. That'll be to a minimal until I actually trying to sell the place we're in right now. We're trying to make a move. I'm trying to just juggle a bunch of things in life. And after being somewhere for 40 years, besides in and out with a girlfriend, I really didn't know until I moved, and I didn't know, and now I have a good idea on what I should do in different changes and things that I can make. So cheers to you, cheers to the New Year's, and thanks for watching.